What's the worst thing someone tried to correct you about? Something you're specialized at. My wife has a friend who studied zoology who once told me that cows can't run or jump. I grew up with them. I, more than once, had to run after or away from them after they had jumped a fence. Cows are effing fast when they want to be. People without their ID constantly try and quote various laws about being able to order alcohol when out with their parents. I work in a pub, which is part of a chain. We're regularly tested for Challenge 21. No, I'm not handing you a pint when you can't prove you're old enough and wouldn't be willing to pay the £1,000 fine I'd receive. r/don't you know who I am is a great subreddit to binge these kind of stories. Oh boy, where do I begin? I'm a professional music producer. I've been for years. My productions get great reviews from people and are often singled out by music magazines and other industry professionals. People who know what they're doing are nothing but nice and supportive, but I get crap from salty bedroom guitarists all the effing time. Seems like every time I produce a young band, there's this one guy there who thinks he knows it all because he watched a YouTube video. The bass knob on the amp should be set at 10 because 5 years ago I heard that Tremonti set his bass knob at 10. There should be no effects or editing on the vocals because Black Sabbath in the 70s didn't have vocal effects. Double tracking guitars? What the F? Nirvana had one guitar player and they were the biggest band on the planet. We're recording only one take. I'm not really specialized, but a Redditor tried correcting me about the geography of my country, Norway, claiming that it was very much flat like all other Nordic countries, and he refuses to believe me when I told him that it is the opposite and it's filled with mountains. I'm an ornithologist and have handled literally thousands of baby birds. Someone in the neighborhood was asking our neighborhood Facebook group what to do if a baby fell out of its nest. I told her to put it back. A guy hops on, no idea who I was, and went off about how the mom would never return if you touched the baby and that she should just try to raise the baby. Not easy if you don't know what you're doing and don't have the supplies. I informed him it was an old wives' tale. Of course, the mom would come back. That fired him up, and he went on about how I was an idiot and didn't know anything and I should just shut up. I informed him of my job and added a picture taken that day of me holding 4 nestlings. I added in an article about me for good measure. He decided to double down and continue to tell me I was clueless and he knew for a fact it was true and people should believe him because he was right and I should change professions because I clearly didn't know what I was talking about. Ugh. I've worked in a tire garage for nearly 10 years and am female. I can't even count how many times people try to tell me how to do my job. No, you can't cross-rotate my tires. You will break a belt. The tires will explode. Sir, we haven't sold bias-ply tires in over 10 years. We only sell radial tires, and the way I'm rotating them is specific to the drive axle of your vehicle. Or my personal favorite, sitting there as a customer lays into me for 30 minutes about how we sold them magnetic tires. I never had a nail in my tires until I bought your tires. I've had 3 repairs since I bought tires from you guys. This is a stunt to make money off me. If only I knew how to make rubber magnetic. I'd be so rich doing all my free repairs. For a short time, I was teaching in a school, and at the end of the year, an inspector visited to go over the way I had corrected the final exams. He insisted that the answer to a particular question was not the one I said was correct. He was the one who had written the question. I argued with him that I was very sure that I knew what I was saying. I had written a thesis about this particular topic. It took a lot of effort not to punch him in the face. I'm a climber. People tell me to wear gloves all of the time. There's a form of climbing where gloves would be somewhat acceptable, although even then a bit questionable. But in free climbing / bouldering, you cannot wear gloves because your fingers actually allow you to grip on to smaller pieces of rock. Please like and subscribe if you've made it this far. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the video and have a wonderful day. I had to leave r/welding for this reason. I'm a welder on nuclear submarines with over 14 different X-ray welding qualifications at this company alone. I would constantly get into arguments with people who are new and have no real-world experience with welding. The amount of wrong information being thrown out left and right over there is insane. There are plenty of very knowledgeable folks there, but they are overshadowed by the ignorant. I am an identical twin and a big biology nerd. I had someone insist that fraternal twins are paternal twins and explain why she'll have some because they're leapfrogged through her husband's family. Edit. I love the convos this reply started. I used the platform to say that I once specifically asked my genetics professor in college if a woman can inherit a twinning gene through her father. He said yes, he believed so. It blew my mind. Of course, it does not affect the man's ability to have twins, but it can potentially affect future female offspring. I didn't specialize on it, but when I worked at the deli in my local grocery store, I had a guy come in asking for some sliced ham. I asked him if he wanted Black Forest ham, honey baked, or mesquite ham. He looked at me and said, "It's not mesquite, it's mystique." I pointed at the sign and label on the actual effing ham that said mesquite ham, but he still corrected me. I gave up and gave him his damn mystique ham. This was a good 15 years ago, and I'm still mad about it. Got a ton of these when I worked at a video game store. My favorite was a guy who came in around the time Skyrim came out and asked if we had the new Elder Scrolls game. I said, "Oh, you mean Skyrim?" He laughed condescendingly and said, "No, I mean Scrim." Thinking he was just mistaken, I was like, "Oh no, it's called Skyrim." "No, it's not. It's pronounced Scrim." At that point, I realized he didn't even want the game, he just wanted to show up the girl working in the game store with his superior knowledge. Also had someone come in demanding the Mario game on PS1. When I said no such thing existed, he immediately went ballistic, screaming that it does exist and he played it at his friend's house. He eventually stormed out of the store yelling about how stupid I was. Guessing he'd had that interaction at a few other game stores that day. My height. I'm 6'10". Guy comes up and says he's 6'10", so I must be like 7 foot. Nah man, you're 6'6" max. And then we went back and forth about that for a bit. Also had the other side of that coin where someone will ask how tall I am and I'll reply 6'10", and they just straight up won't believe me and will tell me I'm lying. Like, what? Why? What would I possibly stand to benefit? I studied history at uni and worked for a while as a tour guide in Prague, Czech Republic. I had a customer once on a walking tour of the city go real snarky with me because I called the river running through the city the Vltava. He declared to the whole tour that that wasn't its name. I asked him if he'd heard it referred to as the Moldau, as that was the German name for the river during the Habsburg era when German was the official language, but he said no, and was I stupid? The river was called the Danube. I pointed out to him that the Danube doesn't run through Prague and asked if maybe he was thinking of Brno. No, he had definitely read in a guidebook that it was the Danube, and why the hell was he paying money for this tour if the guy didn't even know what the river was called? At which point, another tourist in the group showed him her guidebook where it clearly said Vltava. Then another showed him a map. And another showed him another guidebook, and so on until the whole group had basically showed him what a twazer he was being. He didn't apologize, of course, but at least he shut up for the rest of the tour. Asked to do the rear brakes on a classic Vespa. I think it may have been a 200 rally. Not sure, it was decades ago. So the owner and his pal turn up with the scooter. I loosen off and remove the rear rim and tire, loosen the hub nut, and go to put the rear rim and tire back on. "Oh, hey, wait a minute, mate. What the F are you doing?" "I'm getting the hub off." "Not like that, you're not." So I tell them I'm going for a cuppa and a smoke, and I'll be back when they've removed the hub. 4 hours, 4 bloody hours they were at it, hub wouldn't budge, not 1 millimeter. Getting bored, I go back to them, put the rim and tire on, screw in and tighten 2 wheel bolts, and using a mallet, hit 3 times in one point, then 3 times 180 degrees opposite, rinse and repeat 3 or 4 times, whole rim/tire/hub assembly lifts off. I charge them half a day labor for a 30-minute job. I work in IT. Users argue with me almost every day. I'm majoring in archaeology. I had a guy start talking to me about dinosaurs. I correct him and say it's a fairly common misconception, but paleontology and archaeology are 2 different fields, and I'm studying humans, not dinosaurs. He doubles down and insists I need to know about dinosaurs because what do you do if you're digging up ruins and find a dinosaur fossil? Call a paleontologist? He smugly tells me I'll be useless in the field if I don't know about dinosaurs and I better start registering for paleontology courses, and leaves. I still don't know about dinosaurs. A guy that considered himself to be a music maven tried to correct me when I mentioned Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, Ode to Joy. He insisted that J.S. Bach composed it, when in fact, Bach never composed any symphonies, not to mention that Ode to Joy is one of Beethoven's most famous pieces. I used to work as an outdoor guide on one of the Channel Islands off the coast of Southern California. Once I was hiking with a pair of women in probably their late 40s or early 50s. They were asking me all sorts of questions about the natural history of the island, mostly simple stuff, but they had a lot of questions. Then one of them hits me with this gem. So how often do you guys go out to feed the whales and dolphins? I was genuinely confused for a moment. What did she mean? I asked her. Well, you have to make sure all those whales get to eat. When do you feed them? It must be expensive to have enough food for them all. This woman thought that every day our boat captains would drive around the channel tossing fish to dolphins and whales until they were all fed. I have no idea where she got this, considering she'd come over on that very boat. It took me a little while to politely convince her otherwise. Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.